I wasn't supposed to be home that night. The Austin conference wrapped up a day early, and after 3 nights of stiff hotel pillows, late dinners with clients, and far too much airport coffee, all I wanted was to sleep in my own bed. I didn't text Lori. I figured I'd surprise her, maybe bring her that Thai curry she liked from the little spot off Colfax. We hadn't spent real time together in weeks. The idea of coming home early felt like a good thing, something spontaneous, something normal. But the moment I stepped through the front door, I felt it. Not fear. Not dread. Just stillness. A kind of too clean silence, like the house was holding its breath. The first thing I noticed was the faint scent of something unfamiliar. Not strong, but definitely not mine. It lingered in the air like someone had just left. Cologne, sharp and musky. Masculine. Not like the clean, citrusy stuff I wore. This was heavier. Almost smug. I set my bag down by the coat rack and stood still for a second, listening. The house didn't creak. The air didn't shift. But my instincts, those quiet, primal senses that live somewhere deep in a man's gut, they stirred. I made my way upstairs, trying not to jump to conclusions, trying to tell myself this was just road fatigue messing with my perception. But when I got to our bedroom, the scene hit me like a whisper I couldn't quite hear. The door was open. The bed made. Our bedside lamps were off. All of that was fine. What wasn't fine was the men's jacket lying crumpled on the floor, right next to Lori's nightstand. It was thick, gray, and unfamiliar, definitely not mine. Worn, too. The cuffs were frayed, the zipper had a broken tooth. It looked like something someone might wear on a cold hike, not something you'd casually forget at a friend's house. And then, hanging from the closet door, was a pale blue Oxford shirt. Neatly pressed. Also unfamiliar. I stepped closer. That cologne again. Same one. Embedded in the fabric like memory. I just stood there, blinking, trying to process it all while every logical bone in my body told me to wait before assuming the worst. People forget things. People borrow jackets. But it didn't feel like that. It felt intentional. That's when Lori walked in. She was wearing a slate gray robe, her hair still wet and twisted in a towel. She looked surprised for all of half a second, then shifted gears smoothly. Her face brightened like nothing was out of place. "Nate," she said, almost laughing. "What are you doing home? You weren't supposed to be back until tomorrow." I didn't say anything right away. I nodded toward the jacket. "Whose is that?" She followed my gaze, then let out a breathy chuckle like it was nothing. "Oh, that's Drew's. My cousin." I raised an eyebrow. "Since when is Drew in town?" "He drove in yesterday. Last minute. He was up hiking in the Flatirons with some friends and didn't want to drive back to Flagstaff late at night. I told him he could crash here." She said it like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Like I should have expected it. "You didn't mention that in any of your texts," I said. "Well, you were busy," she replied easily, moving toward the jacket. She bent down, picked it up, and shook it out like it was an afterthought. I figured it wasn't a big deal. He slept in the guest room, left early this morning. She reached into the pocket and pulled out a flimsy blue luggage tag. "Here, he left this. Probably from his flight into Denver. See? Drew B. That's him." I took it from her and looked it over. It did say Drew B. Flight info. Something about the tag looked legit. But still, the timeline wasn't adding up. Kind of weird for him to leave his shirt hanging, isn't it? I said. Especially if he left early. She turned to glance at it. "Oh. Yeah, probably forgot it. I'll text him later." Her voice was calm. Too calm. Not defensive, but practiced. There was no nervous laughter, no fidgeting. She wasn't scrambling. She was guiding the conversation, steering it away from the edge I was tiptoeing on. Maybe that's what made it worse. "Why didn't he just get a hotel?" I asked, still staring at the shirt. "Seriously," she said with a half smile. "You think Drew's going to spring for a hotel when he can stay here for free? You know how he is." I nodded slowly. "Right?" There was a pause, just long enough for her to pick up the shirt and fold it neatly over her arm. She didn't seem flustered at all. And yet, my gut was screaming. "Next time, maybe give me a heads up," I said. She nodded, smiling again. "Of course. Sorry, babe. I should've. It was just so last minute." She leaned in to kiss my cheek, then walked past me toward the hallway. "You hungry?" I was just about to order dinner. I nodded. "Sure." She disappeared down the stairs like nothing had happened. I stood there for a while, staring at the spot where the jacket had been. Then I picked up my suitcase, moved into the room, and sat on the edge of the bed. Everything felt off. Drew. Hiking. Flatirons. Last-minute crash. Luggage tag. All of it made sense on paper. But the smell in the room wasn't just cologne. It was lived in. Presence. That quiet energy a space carries when someone's been there in a way that's not just passing through. Lori had an answer for everything and not a single one sounded off. But that's what got to me. Her story wasn't shaky, it was polished. Too clean. Like it had been rehearsed. And the weirdest part? The jacket had a small rip along the inner lining near the shoulder seam. A clean tear. Not something you'd miss. Not something you'd leave behind if it were yours. I didn't know why that stuck with me, but it did. We had dinner. Pad Thai. She asked about Austin, smiled at the right moments, asked the usual questions. Nothing was wrong. She was light, engaged, relaxed. But I wasn't. That night, when she fell asleep next to me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling. My mind kept circling back to that jacket. That shirt. That scent. The way she'd looked at me, not surprised to see me home, but calculating how to play it. And it wasn't that I thought she was lying, it was that she was too good at not lying. That's when I realized something had changed. Not just in her. In us. There used to be a time when we were awkwardly honest, clumsy with our truths. There was charm in it. Vulnerability. Somewhere along the way, she had learned how to pivot smoothly, control the tempo of a conversation, manage suspicion like SK*LL. And maybe that's what scared me the most. Because you can't fake that unless you've had practice. And if she had practice, what else was she hiding? After that night, things should have gone back to normal. They didn't. I didn't say anything else about the jacket or the cologne or the shirt, and Lori didn't bring it up again either. She was her usual self on the surface. Smiling, making breakfast, running errands, laughing at sitcoms like nothing had shifted. But underneath that polished routine, I could feel something fraying at the edges. It started with the small things. The way her phone seemed to be surgically attached to her lately, always within arm's reach, always flipped face down. She used to leave it charging on the kitchen counter for hours, even forget where she'd left it. Now, it was never out of sight, never out of her control. I tested it once. I walked into the living room while she was in the shower and glanced at the screen. Airplane mode. Not silent. Not do not disturb. Airplane mode. That wasn't nothing. That was intentional. When I asked about it, she didn't miss a beat. Ugh, I kept getting spam texts during my yoga class. Drove me nuts. It's just easier. Right? Yoga. That had come out of nowhere too. Lori wasn't into yoga before, not that I remembered. But now she was suddenly enrolled in late-night yoga sculpt classes downtown, sometimes not getting home until after 9:30. I offered to pick her up one night, said I'd wait outside and grab coffee across the street. She blinked a little too long before answering, then smiled. No need, babe. I usually Uber with the girls after. The girls. Except I didn't know any of them. No names. No selfies. No stories. Just vague mentions. Just enough to sound casual. And it wasn't just the yoga. She'd also picked up dance. Latin fusion, apparently. She said it helped her feel grounded, which sounded a little too rehearsed to me. She even laughed and said, "Don't worry, it's mostly women in the class," before I could say anything. I wasn't worried about who was in the class. I was worried about why she had suddenly decided to reinvent herself without mentioning it until it was already routine. Then there were the lingerie bags. The first one I found buried under a pile of reusable grocery totes in her trunk. The second one was stashed behind the emergency kit. Both brand new, still with tags, lace sets that didn't look like anything I'd seen her wear. And believe me, I would have remembered. When I casually asked if she wanted to have a date night, something we hadn't done in weeks, she said she was too tired, that work had been brutal, that she just needed one quiet weekend to herself. Except we'd already had 2 weekends like that. 2 weekends where she left Saturday morning to stay with her sister Haley in Fort Collins, claiming Haley was having a rough time and needed help with her twins. I offered to come, to bring dinner, or at least watch the kids while they hung out. Lori politely declined, said it'd just be too chaotic, that I'd be bored. She never brought back photos. Never talked about what they did. And the third weekend when she left again, I called Haley myself. We hadn't spoken much recently, so I played it cool. Asked how the kids were, how work was. Just small talk. Eventually I said, "Glad Lori's been able to spend time with you. Must be a handful." There was a pause on the other end. "What do you mean?" She said she's been staying with you lately. Just figured it's been nice having her around. Haley let out a soft laugh. She came by 2 weekends ago for like an hour. That's it. I covered quickly. Oh yeah, maybe I misunderstood. She probably just meant she was thinking about you. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of our bed for a long time, staring at the floor like it might give me a reason not to feel what I already knew. Lori was lying. Not once. Not just in passing. Over and over. And she was getting better at it. I started paying closer attention. Her calendar was a mess, meetings scheduled over other meetings, appointment blocks that didn't sync with her real estate firm's call logs. One day I checked her work laptop. It had a password now. She'd never used one before. I asked her about it casually and she shrugged. IT policy. They're cracking down. Even her browsing history was wiped clean. Completely blank. Lori wasn't just hiding something, she was scrubbing the trail behind her. I didn't want to believe it. I really didn't. But my gut was screaming at me and every sign confirmed it. There's a kind of slow unraveling that happens when you start questioning the ground you walk on. You feel like you're going crazy. Like maybe you're the problem. Like maybe you're the one jumping at shadows. So I started keeping notes. Not like a detective in some thriller novel, just small entries in a locked spreadsheet. Timestamps. What she said. What I observed. When she left. When she got back. The things that didn't line up. I wasn't sure what I was building at the time. A case? A map? A way to protect myself from the possibility that I was being paranoid? But the deeper I went, the more the pieces stopped resembling coincidence. She changed her perfume. A deeper scent, heavier, more mature than the light floral one she used to wear. I noticed the bottle tucked into the side pocket of her gym bag, like she didn't want it sitting out at home. She started carrying cash. That one stood out the most. Lori always used her card. She was practically allergic to cash, said it made her feel disorganized. But now she was withdrawing $200 here, $100 there. From different ATMs. Different banks. No receipts. When I asked her about one withdrawal, she said she used it for parking at an open house. At 8:30 p.m.? She smiled. One of those late walkthroughs. You know how it is with luxury buyers. I nodded even though I didn't know how it was. Because I'd never seen her do a showing after 6 p.m. in all the years she'd been working. Still, I played along. Because if you accuse someone too early, they just get better at hiding things. And I wasn't ready to confront what I didn't fully understand yet. Then came the moment that felt like a crack down the middle of my chest. One morning, I opened her car to move it out of the driveway. Trash pickup was running late. As I slid into the driver's seat, I noticed her phone mount had a second phone tucked behind it. Smaller. Sleeker. No case. Not her regular device. I didn't touch it. I didn't even mention it. But I memorized every detail. Later that night, it was gone. The next day, her main phone was back in airplane mode. Something about the way she moved around me had shifted. She used to reach for me without thinking, touched my shoulder when she passed me in the hallway, kissed my cheek absent-mindedly when she grabbed coffee. Yeah? Nothing. Our conversations had become logistical, banking, schedules, dinner plans. Nothing in asterisk, mate. Nothing vulnerable. I asked her once, point blank, are we okay? She looked at me, blinked slowly, and said, we're fine. Just tired. You know. She kissed me that night. Not passionately. Not long. But just enough to say, see? We're okay. Like she was checking a box. And maybe that's what scared me the most. Because when someone's truly drifting away, they don't always run. Sometimes they just start creating a life that doesn't include you. Quietly. Incrementally. Until you realize you're the only one still holding the pieces. I don't know what finally broke through the denial. Maybe it was how Lori started humming again, soft little melodies while cooking, brushing her hair, unloading the dishwasher. It used to be charming. Now it felt eerie. Like a woman who had found peace somewhere else. Peace that didn't include me. I was at work when it happened. A routine IT check. My firm ran security audits every month, data sweeps for synced files, shared drives, cloud leaks. It was boring, methodical work. That day, I was sorting through user access logs when I saw her name. Lori Brooks. Not unusual. She had access to our family cloud account, which was loosely tethered to one of my personal subdirectories. Mostly photos, calendars, tax returns. I clicked out of habit. I wasn't looking for anything. But then I noticed something strange. Under a cached mobile sync, there was a folder titled Work Retreat, Santa Fe. It hadn't been there before. The timestamp said it was uploaded 4 days ago. Inside the folder were 8 files. 4 were photos, beach selfies, hotel views, 2 champagne flutes by a balcony. But 2 stood out. A short video clip, and a screenshot *T of a text thread labeled Marlowe. I clicked the video. Took a second to load, and when it did, my heart dropped into my stomach. It was our living room. My living room. The camera was shaky, like someone had set it on a table. In the frame was Lori, wearing a black camisole, sitting on the arm of the couch, smiling at someone just off screen. Then he entered. Tall, dark hair, shirt half-buttoned, confident, familiar. Sean Marlowe. I felt like I'd been punched. He sat next to her. They leaned into each other, lips meeting in that slow, practiced way that made my skin crawl. Behind them, on the wall, hung a photo of our family, me, Lori, and the kids at a pumpkin patch 2 falls ago. They kissed, laughed, whispered something I couldn't hear, and then the video ended. I stared at the screen, hands frozen on the mouse. Sean Marlowe, the same guy Lori once introduced at a fundraiser as just a tax attorney I met through the firm. He'd given her a few tips, she said. I remembered the moment now, how they'd shared a look that was just a little too warm. But I hadn't thought twice. I should have. I opened the screen *T next. It was a message from Lori to Sean. Lori, En's flying to Austin tomorrow. You can come by in the evening. I'll have wine and the key code's the same. Sean, missed you today. You looked amazing in that red dress. Lori, don't forget we're syncing the Dropbox under Cloud 3 for the files. I'll sort through them before Monday. He still hasn't noticed. My chest tightened. Files. Dropbox. Cloud syncs. I went back to the folder. One file was an Excel sheet. I opened it. Password protected. I cracked it after 2 tries. Inside were transaction logs. Transfers from dummy LLCs to a consulting firm I'd never heard of. Dates and amounts. When I cross-checked the transfers with our company activity logs, I realized something horrifying. The firm Lori was feeding was mine. My company. My data. Lori had been siphoning confidential intel. Names, invoices, contracts, and feeding it to Sean. And Sean wasn't just a divorce attorney or consultant. He was building something. A case. Not against me legally, but strategically. Reputationally. There was another folder. This one labeled Plan B. Inside were audio notes. Recordings. Clicked one. Sean's voice. If he starts digging, pivot to stress. Say he's been unstable. Use the night meds if needed, anything that casts doubt. Then Lori. I'll get the school counselor to write a concern report. I'll say it's about anxiety. That way it's on record. There were more. Recordings of them discussing custody. Ways to paint me as unfit. Coordinating schedules. Language they'd use with therapists. Even a bullet list of what Lori called parental pivot points. Basically, emotional manipulation strategies to make the kids appear withdrawn around me. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at the screen like it might erase itself. For 9 months, at least, Lori had been having an affair. And not just a physical one. A psychological one. A strategic one. This wasn't a lapse in judgment. It was a campaign. And I was the target. I spent the next 4 hours downloading every file, creating mirror backups, and air-gapping the data from our home network. I called in 2 favors that afternoon, old contacts from my security days. People who knew how to dig quietly, document cleanly, and stay invisible. One of them, a guy named Marshall, set up a dedicated surveillance sweep. We used a remote virtual server to store the data. Password rotation every 48 hours. No names, no links to my firm. The second contact, Dana, was a legal reconnaissance expert. She specialized in covert background profiling. Within 2 days, we had a complete dossier on Sean Marlowe. And it wasn't pretty. Turns out Sean had been sanctioned twice by the bar for conflict of interest violations. Hidden behind sealed settlements. He'd been under internal review by a corporate ethics committee 3 years earlier for facilitating insider trading through a dummy trust. No criminal charges, but enough smoke to make a fire. His finances were also a mess. Offshore accounts, shell corporations, cryptocurrency laundering channels, and a consulting firm that hadn't filed taxes in 2 years. On paper, he looked clean. But under the surface, dirty as hell. Dana also discovered that Sean had briefly represented a competitor of mine last year. A tech client I'd bid against on a major security contract. That contract? It went to them by 2 points, after they'd predicted my pricing strategy to the dollar. I felt sick, because now it wasn't just about Lori cheating. It was about betrayal at every level. She'd we *P***nized our marriage, our family, my livelihood. And for what? For a man who knew how to talk smooth and wear tailored suits? No, this wasn't just infidelity. This was espionage. I didn't confront her. Not yet. Instead, I started playing her game. I pulled her access from every shared drive silently. She didn't notice at first. I stopped syncing our calendars, replaced her cloud permissions with dummy files, rerouted our company VPN to block any flagged IPs traced to her or Sean's devices. Then I changed my routine, started leaving earlier for work, came home later, took fake phone calls in the garage, acted distracted. She noticed, asked if everything was okay. I said I was just tired. Let her think she had the upper hand. The next week I moved out. Not officially. Just told her I needed a few days to clear my head. Maybe stay with my brother. I told her I wasn't sleeping well, needed space. She didn't push. She actually looked relieved. I booked a long-term rental under an alias. Something clean, minimalist, off the grid. I needed space to think, strategize, rebuild. Because Lori and Sean had planned every angle, emotional, legal, reputational. But what they hadn't planned on was me seeing it coming. And now it was my turn. I've always believed there are two kinds of betrayal. The kind that cuts you once and bleeds you fast, and the kind that festers slow, quiet, corrosive, patient. What Lori did, that was the second kind. After I moved out, I gave her just enough rope to keep thinking she was in control. I told her I was staying with my brother Mike, which I wasn't. I told her I needed therapy, which was true, but I made it sound like weakness. I let her believe I was unraveling, not calculating. Truth was, I was already 10 moves ahead. The apartment I rented was under the name Aaron Grant. Clean ID, cash payments, burner phone linked to a prepaid account. The place itself was unremarkable. Gray walls, barely furnished, no internet registered to my name, but it was quiet, secure, and it was mine. From there, I began to rebuild. Marshall set me up with 2 air-gapped laptops, one for digital forensics, the other strictly offline. I wasn't just backing up what I'd found. I was building a case. Dates, times, logins, metadata. All stitched together into a timeline so bulletproof even the best attorney couldn't poke a hole through it. I combed through every document Lori had touched in the past 6 months. Work emails, spreadsheet drafts, PDF scans. One pattern emerged. She was relaying non-public client information from my firm to Sean. Details about clients in sensitive industries, cybersecurity, defense contracts, intellectual property audits. She was using insider knowledge to help Sean poach cases, structure settlements, and, based on one heavily redacted email, blackmail opposing counsel into folding early. Lori wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively dismantling everything I'd built. And she was good at it. Too good. Which is why I needed Dana. She had access to things no civilian should. The kind of quiet clearances you only get when you've worked black budget projects for too long and know how to vanish. She set up parallel shadow monitoring on both Lori and Sean, geofencing alerts, VoIP scrapes, screen captures through recycled VPN traffic. That's how I found out about the lake house. One of Lori's real estate contacts, someone named Trish G., had a property near Granby listed under a family trust. Trish's messages to Lori were casual. You're still good for the 16th, right? And don't forget to grab that champagne from the dry cellar. I wouldn't have thought anything of it until Dana matched the GPS logs. Turns out Lori and Sean had been spending weekends there for months. Long weekends. Each time, she'd tell me she was visiting Haley or attending a conference. She even showed me fake agendas once. Perfectly formatted PDFs with speaker bios, schedules, even mocked-up Zoom invites. I kept all of them. Evidence, layered and clear. Meanwhile, back at the apartment, I was digging into Sean's past with increasing disgust. A trail of paper companies. Litigation support firms that billed clients then ghosted before trial. A pattern of grooming vulnerable clients, mostly women in high-conflict divorces, and using them to gather intelligence from their ex-spouses. I wasn't just looking at a betrayal anymore. I was looking at a racket. And Lori, whether she saw it or not, was now his partner. So I took the next step. I contacted my firm's legal team, not to file anything yet, but to trigger a quiet ethics review of all incoming client transitions over the past 9 months. I flagged Sean's name anonymously through a proxy account. Within 48 hours, compliance had opened a file on him for suspicious referral patterns and unregistered access to sensitive documents. That same week, I spoke to a child psychologist, someone I trusted, someone who had worked with our son after his anxiety diagnosis last spring. I wanted her professional opinion on the recordings I'd found Lori coaching our son to say certain things to counselors. The psychologist was shaken. "This is coercive," she said. "It's subtle, but it's real. He's being taught to disassociate. That could cause permanent issues." I saved her testimony. Timestamped. Recorded with permission. The evidence was stacking up fast. Still, I stayed silent. I went to work. Answered Lori's texts with one-word replies. Took mental health days that I used to meet with cyber auditors and legal strategists. Every interaction with her now had a purpose. Every question was a test. She didn't catch on. If anything, she grew bolder. She sent selfies again, playful, polished, always just a little too posed. She told me she missed me. Said things like, "We should do a couples trip when this all blows over, and you've been so patient with me." It made my skin crawl, because now I knew what she meant by blows over. She thought I'd be the one blamed. That I'd snap first. That I'd storm in, accuse her, make a scene, and give her exactly what she needed to trigger the legal playbook she'd built with Sean. But that was never going to happen. Because I wasn't building toward confrontation. I was building toward exposure. So I planned the moment carefully. There was a Friday coming up mid-April. I knew from Trisha's emails that Lori and Sean were planning something at the lake house. New chapter, she wrote in one message. The beginning of something better. I tracked the guest list. Mutual friends. Lori's coworkers. Even 2 of my own business contacts, clients I'd introduced her to at past events. They were all invited. The subject line of the email? Freedom looks good. Subtle as a brick through a window. That Friday, I drove up early. The lake house sat quiet, nestled among pines, not a single light on yet. I parked 3 properties down, walked the rest of the way under cover of trees. I had help Marshall ran drone recon to log license plates. Dana tagged every phone on site through geolocation sweeps. By sunset, the place was alive. Laughter. Glass clinking. Music spilling from the deck. Inside, I saw them, Lori and Sean, laughing with guests, arms wrapped around each other like they hadn't just spent months building a case to destroy me. She wore a white dress. Of course she did. At 8:35 p.m., I walked through the front door. There was a moment, less than 2 seconds, where the music didn't stop, the talking didn't pause, and no one quite realized what was happening. Then someone saw me. I remember their face twisting in slow recognition, like they were trying to make sense of a ghost. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I was wearing a suit, clean-pressed. Under one arm, a laptop. In my pocket, a remote trigger for the projector mounted in the corner of the ceiling, the one Trisha's husband always forgot to lock out of guest access. I plugged in the HDMI cable. The screen behind the fireplace flickered. Someone turned off the music. And then the truth began to play. I dreamed about this moment more times than I care to admit. What it would feel like to walk into a room full of people who thought they knew me, friends, colleagues, neighbors, while carrying the truth like a blade. But reality wasn't cinematic. It was quiet. Unsettlingly quiet. I stepped into that lake house like I'd never left. No one stopped me. No one said a word. My shoes clicked softly on the hardwood, the sound oddly crisp over the ambient murmur of music and laughter. Lori was across the room by the fireplace, one arm linked with Sean's. She was holding a glass of champagne and laughing with someone from her brokerage team. Her dress was sleek, white, shoulder-bearing. Bridal, almost. She looked weightless, like she'd finally stepped into the version of her life she thought she deserved. She hadn't seen me yet. The banner above the mantel caught my eye first. Freedom looks good. Big block letters. Metallic gold. Smug. Next to it, a photo table. At least 6 framed pictures. Lori and the kids, Lori and Sean with cocktails, Lori by herself on a balcony, windswept and smiling like a real estate magazine cover. I kept walking. I passed a few familiar faces. Our former neighbor Rachel. A guy from the country club I used to belong to. I even spotted Nolan, someone I once mentored in cybersecurity. They all gave me the same look, recognition mixed with awkward fear. No one knew what to say. At the far end of the room, near the deck doors, a massive 80-inch projector screen hung from a ceiling beam. Most people thought it was for the playlist visuals. It wasn't. I approached it silently, placing the laptop down on the accent table beneath it. Marshall had rigged the presentation for instant boot. Just one click. That was it. No speech. No theatrics. I tapped the spacebar. The projector kicked on. At first, people just glanced up casually. Then the music dimmed. A few conversations died mid-sentence. The first slide was subtle. A still image of Lori and Sean seated in my living room, laughing. Their wine glasses clinked. You could see our family photo in the background. Someone let out a small gasp. Slide 2, a screen recording of Lori's text messages. A scroll through dozens of messages labeled Sean M. Complete with timestamps. He's gone till Tuesday, can you come by? Don't forget the court filing outline. I copied his login to the shared folder. Once the therapy file is submitted, the counselor will flag his instability. Haley said she'd confirm if needed. The guests were dead silent now. Slide 3, a folder tree. Named documents. Plan B.docs, custodyscript.wave, vpnlogs.pdf. The cursor hovered. Clicked. Opened a.pdf. Inside was a table mapping Lori's efforts to document emotional decline in primary caregiver Nathan. Notes on manipulating pediatric therapist visits. Coordinated storytelling with Sean and Lori's sister Haley. Screensh *TS of counseling appointment bookings made under dummy logins. Each one cross-referenced with Sean's legal filings timeline. Slide 4, bank records. Money transfers from Shell LLCs traced back to Lori's account. Funds sent to LKM Mediation Services, a fake consulting firm Sean had used twice before in other divorce cases. Dana had uncovered those through layered forensics. Slide 5, a video. The same one I'd seen. Lori and Sean in my living room kissing under the family portrait. This time everyone saw it. Someone dropped a glass. It shattered. Lori was frozen. Sean moved first. He stepped forward, raising his voice. What the hell is this? I didn't look at him. I clicked to the final slide. White background. Black text. One line. This is who you celebrated tonight. I closed the laptop. No one clapped. No one said a word. I turned to face the room. For the first time since walking in, I let myself meet their eyes. The pity. The shock. The guilt on the ones who knew something but said nothing. And then I looked at Lori. She stood there like a statue, her face pale, lips parted slightly like she was trying to form words but hadn't found any. Her hands trembled. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. I walked out the same way I came in. Straight-backed. Calm. Letting the silence echo behind me like an exhale finally released. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. The sound of the lake lapping against the shore grounded me. I climbed into the car and drove away with the windows down. That night, I didn't go back to my apartment. I drove for hours, no destination in mind, just miles of road and headlights, letting the adrenaline bleed out until I finally felt still again. By morning, my phone had 17 missed calls. 11 from Lori. 3 from Haley. 2 from Sean, 1 voicemail I never listened to. The rest were texts from people who had been at the lake house. Some apologizing. Some pretending they hadn't known. One client, Rachel, just wrote, "Thank you for showing us." I didn't respond to any of them. Because this wasn't about revenge. This was about clarity. And clarity has a price. The next few days were chaos, but not for me. For them. Lori's brokerage dropped her after internal HR complaints surfaced. Apparently, she'd used company devices for private correspondence with clients who were legally bound to my firm. Conflict of interest, data breach risk. Dana leaked a report anonymously. Sean? He disappeared for a few days. But word traveled fast. 2 of his clients pulled out of active cases once the screensh *TS hit social media. Marshall had tipped off a watchdog site anonymously, which posted the evidence as a community alert. By the end of the week, Sean's practice was being audited by the Colorado Bar Association. Meanwhile, I went to work. I picked up my kids from school. I made waffles on Sunday morning. Quiet. Focused. Like nothing had happened. Except everything had. One evening I got a knock on the apartment door. It was Lori. No makeup. No pretense. She looked like a stranger wearing my wife's skin. "Nathan," she said, her voice cracked, "please. Can we talk?" I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "Talk about what?" She swallowed. "I made a mistake. I waited. I never meant to hurt you. I didn't think." "No," I cut in calm. "You thought plenty. You just didn't think I'd find out." Her eyes welled up. "You don't understand what I've been dealing with, what I felt." "I do understand," I said. "That's the problem. I understand perfectly." She blinked, stunned. "Everything was a strategy to you. A move on a board. The timing. The framing. The story. The witnesses. You had it all lined up. Tears slid down her face. I didn't want it to go this far. But it did, I said. And now you're here. Not because you regret the plan, only because it failed. She didn't deny it. And that was all I needed to know. I'll be filing for custody, I said. Sole custody. Her mouth fell open. Nathan, you coached our son? You nized our daughter's therapy. That's not just betrayal. That's abuse. She shook her head. I didn't. Stop, I said. Just stop. You had your say. This is mine. I closed the door. She didn't knock again. Behind that door, I didn't collapse. I didn't cry. I just exhaled. And for the first time in months, I felt clean. The week after the lake house, I hosted a small event at our firm, nothing flashy, just a client appreciation night. Midway through, I took the floor. No speech. Just a live demo. I played a short, curated reel of what had been leaked emails, financial trails, Sean's misconduct. I never said Lori's name. I didn't need to. What mattered was truth. Afterward, hands were shaken. Contracts were renewed. The quiet nods from my peers told me everything. People knew what happened. And more importantly, they knew who I still was. In the weeks that followed, momentum shifted hard. Clients Sean once wooed moved to me. I filed a civil countersuit against Lori, fraud, conspiracy, reputational sabotage. With Dana's evidence and the recorded therapy manipulation, the judge ruled swiftly. Sole custody. No visitation for now. Lori's lawyer tried to delay, but it was over. The kids came home for good. I told them only this: you're safe. You're loved. And I'll always show up. No more lies. Just rebuilding one honest day at a time.